my presentation file. Okay, sharing my screen. Okay, and yes. So is it actually visible, this particular slide?
Yeah,
Flowpast
visible.
NACA
Visible.
0018 aerofoil.
Yes, yes, visible, sir.
Okay, so yeah, so next actually, like we have looked at this particular slide, and then now we are going to talk about like aeroacoustic problems, simulation of aeroacoustic problems. Like we have worried about methods which have higher resolving ability, which has neutral stability and physical dispersion relation preserving nature, right? DRP nature. We talked about it, and now actually we will see their application in solving computational aeroacoustic problems. So aeroacoustics means basically the noise or the sound generated by fluid flow. One needs to understand how much amount of noise is generated and how to control that noise. So for that purpose, actually, this particular specialized branch has developed. It is essentially part of computational fluid dynamics, but it is far more restrictive and far more rigorous, challenging as compared to the normal CFD calculations. So there is actually huge difference between traditional CFD calculations and aeroacoustic calculations. Computational aeroacoustic calculations, they are the most demanding calculations that one can come across. So, what is that so special about computational aeroacoustic problems? We will discuss here. So, um, the first point is basically one has to understand that, like the way now I am talking to you, there is atmospheric pressure around you. It is around 10 raised to the power 5 Pascal. While the sound that I have generated, which is coming to you through your speakers, that sound, if you measure the amplitude of that sound, or if you measure the pressure variation with respect to time at a point, that amplitude variation may not be more than few millipascals or so, something like that. So the smallest sound that we can hear is something like around 20 micropascal at 10,000 hertz. Sorry, 1,000 hertz. Okay. So 20 micropascal means 2 into 10 raised to the minus 5, that kind of amplitude pascal. If you look at atmospheric pressure, it is 10 raised to the 5 pascal. If you look at sound um, pressure variation, corresponding amplitude can be as small as 10 raised to the minus 5 pascal. So sound waves are basically superimposed over the atmospheric field, right? So whenever you have to simulate sound propagation inside a fluid, you will have to basically resolve this background pressure, that is atmospheric pressure. On that, these small, tiny sound disturbances which are superimposed, which has like order 10 raised to the minus 5, as small as 10 raised to the minus 5. You need to actually even resolve those disturbances as well. That means you are talking here about a dynamical range, something like 10 order difference between the background acoustic field and the corresponding atmospheric uh, background atmospheric pressure field. Order 10 is huge. Uh, those calculations are very challenging. It simply means that the numerical error which you are going to generate in your calculations, it should at least have accuracy to first 10. After decimal point, at least up to first 10 digits, you should have a accurate answer. Okay. So numerical calculations, the error should be least. Okay. Then actually, I have told you that whenever actually sound propagates, let's say in one direction, it is basically, if I consider its variation, its propagation over a small distance, the sound basically is not attenuated or amplified. It remains actually, the amplitude remains one. So the numerical method should not attenuate or amplify sound. Basically, the sound basically, numerical method should not try to do anything unphysical to that sound amplitude. Also, important point is like all the waves, no matter what their frequency is, sound waves, the corresponding speed of sound is like constant 340 meter per second at in our sea level condition. So one needs to also like careful that whenever I will perform simulation, that time various frequencies, those frequencies should be also like all those frequencies, they should actually propagate with a constant speed. That is nothing but speed of sound. There should not be any spurious dispersion. So these points are important. And then actually what happens is that engineering problems involve acoustic disturbances with higher as well as lower frequencies. So when it comes to resolving higher frequencies, one needs to have a smaller grid because the wavelength becomes small. That means I will have to increase number of grid points into domain. One needs to also use smaller time step because now grid spacing has been reduced. At the same time, when I am dealing with smaller wavelengths, I need to compute for long. So it means that I need to basically use large number of grid points in my domain. I need to reduce my time step, and I also need to perform simulations to large number of time steps. So that basically is very difficult. Also, basically, you will see that in a fluid flow, the hydrodynamic disturbances, like disturbances associated with fluid flow, they decay very quickly, like 1 by r raised to power 6 kind of thing decay rate we have generally. While when it comes to pressure, sound pressure, sound pressure basically for two-dimensional flows decay something like 1 by square root of r. So that so the thing is that when it comes to sound, the sound is able to travel to a large distance. You can remember that one is able to hear a train's horn, right, or a sound created by train engine, which is actually few kilometers away from our location. So the sound basically travels kilometers and kilometers, and still it doesn't decay that much. So that means that your computational domain has to be very big. If it is not big, then actually sound waves will basically bounce back from the outflow boundary, where generally we prescribe certain boundary conditions. So one needs to compute in a very large domain, and then one also needs to put appropriate boundary conditions to tackle the acoustic wave reflection issues. Okay. So this is the first slide on computational acoustic scale thing. Now, how those sound waves are created. Okay. So you can see here a problem. Basically, this is something like a speaker axisymmetric sound wave propagation problem. We have a speaker here. This piston oscillates top like in along the x direction, top direction. And when this piston oscillates, air close to it, basically it gets compressed, and there will be compression region and rarefaction region alternatively when it goes up and comes down. As a result, there will be some sound waves which will be created in this zone. Propagation of those sound waves is basically dictated by set of coupled partial differential equations, and those coupled partial differential equations have been listed here. So what you need to do is that you need to have a grid inside this domain, and then you need to solve these equations on inside this domain. Okay. So this problem is basically taken from this particular reference. You will see that actually I will again play that animation. You will see that the piston here is making this oscillation. So when it oscillates, or when our speaker diaphragm oscillates, the sound waves are basically sent in the upward direction. You will see that basically if you stand in front of the speaker, then you will hear a loud noise. If you are at one particular corner, then the kind of sound that you are going to hear will not be that loud. So important point about sound waves is that apart from amplitude, phase, and frequency, there is some another parameter which is equally important, that is called as directivity. So directivity means actually at different angles away from the sound source, the kind of sound that we experience may not be same amount of loudness or intensity may not be there. So there will be difference in sound pressure variation, okay, at different directions. So that is basically directivity. So here actually we have used our accurate schemes and then computed the sound field at some time, let's say t equal to 90. I have extracted the sound pressure information in the vertical direction and then plotted that information here. Okay. So, and then it basically compares well with the available results in the literature. One thing one has to understand here, that if I do not have accurate schemes which are neutrally stable, and then dispersion relation preserving nature, if they don't have, then such kind of match uh, is not observed. In order to observe this kind of match, one needs to use accurate methods. Okay, so this is simple problem in which we have talked about propagation of sound waves. Okay, because of oscillating diaphragm of a speaker. Okay, next actually, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you some examples in which we have used these accurate methods to find out the sound field. Next example is again from this paper, and in this paper basically gives us this problem at time t equal to 0. Like we have here y equal to 0 is basically a reflecting ground, and at time t equal to 0 at some location we are here bursting, let's say, a firecracker. A sound pulse has been generated. Okay, and then with respect to time, that sound pulse is supposed to move outwards. But then, like the top side, we do not have any restriction, but the bottom side, we have here a restriction. We have a reflecting ground. So, how our sound waves basically propagate? That is basically simulated in this problem. Again, to simulate this problem numerically, you will have to use those accurate methods, space-time accurate methods, and you need to solve these partial differential equations. These partial differential equations are basically obtained by uh, these are like linearized Navier-Stokes equations, which are basically written for disturbance quantities. Okay, so these are directly coming from Navier-Stokes equations, where we have neglected the viscous dissipation action as well as the body force action, because the sound waves propagation over a small distance does not actually get altered by viscous dissipation process. Okay, so when I solve these examples, you can see that we have used here some scheme, OCCS and ORK5 scheme. Details about these schemes are available in our paper. You can actually those read information about those schemes in our paper. And then you can see that at time 30 and at time 60, this initial disturbance basically it propagates outward direction. While from the bottom side, this initial disturbance basically reflect back. And then at time 60, this reflected wavefront you can see clearly. Okay, so these are the solutions which we have computed, and these are the solutions which were computed by some another research group, Professor Tam and his research group. So they have also been shown here. So the previous problem we have talked about how sound waves propagate in the domain, while in this problem we are talking about how the sound waves propagate and also get reflected from a solid surface. So in addition to the propagation, we are also dealing here with a reflection, sound wave reflection property. Okay. So what
What is
generally we,
M stand for?
yes.
Yeah,
Can you,
yes, M.
the question is not
What does
clear.
M stand for?
What is M, huh?
What does M stand for
Yeah,
in the
so the M,
equation?
yeah, so M stands here for the Mach number. So, so this particular exercise has prescribed that there is a flow from left to right, and then the flow happens with a Mach number 0.5. So when that thing happens, then actually what happens is that this particular disturbance, it no longer basically remains stationary at 0, x equal to 0. You can see that the center has been shifted little bit. Something There is a shift from 0. When I actually go to higher time, even the center has been shifted to around 30. So Mach number is given as 0.5. So in this case, there is a mean motion from left to right. The Mach number is 0.5 for that case. And then at t equal to 0, I have given this disturbance, pressure disturbance, and I'm interested in finding out how it evolves with time. So that has been shown here. So is it okay? This explanation, is it okay? मैंने आपका डाउट क्लियर किया क्या, मतलब so is this information okay or you need some information more?
Yeah, I think it's okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so in this example, previous example, actually we have talked about sound wave propagation and corresponding reflection. there is another important property that is called as diffraction. So what happens is that sometimes actually we are able to hear some of the sound or some of the signals, sound signals, acoustic signals, even though there is some kind of a barrier in between us and the source. That happens through something called as a phenomena called as diffraction. Basically, sound waves bend around an object in their path. So that is basically given by diffraction. Now imagine that you have here a problem, like this is a propeller powered aircraft. And in this basically aircraft, if you sit inside the cabin, you know that propeller's blade will rotate at very high speed. They will create some kind of a vorticity, and then that vorticity is responsible for creating sound sound disturbances or acoustic noise, right? If you sit inside the cabin, then you will be exposed to a lot of noise that is created by these propeller blades. So one would like to know that given a particular source, how passengers inside this cabin they actually feel. So to simulate this kind of a problem related to real world scenario, this is a sample problem, okay, that has been shown here. So here basically this body is like a solid body, and close to this solid body we have a source here, a sound source basically, which is given by this S. And this sound source at time t equal to 0 sends a certain pulse, sound pulse, and then that sound pulse come here. Some part of that sound pulse get reflected back, while other part of that sound pulse get basically diffracted. So although C is directly opposite to S, but these points A, B, and C, they actually record a certain amount of sound because of sound wave diffraction. So again, these are same like linearized Navier-Stokes equations. These talk about sound wave propagation. Here U and V, these are like particle velocities, while pressure is sound pressure. So sound pressure variation in your domain. If you prescribe the value of S at time t equal to 0, basically you can solve this set of governing equations, and you can get the solution. So what I have done is that at point A, B, and C, I have actually noted down how my pressure, sound pressure, varies with respect to time. And then that has been shown here, pressure versus time. And since our methods are accurate, we are able to capture sound wave propagation correctly. Otherwise, it is very difficult task. So you can see that the analytical and numerical results, they are almost falling on each other. Okay. So we have so far we have talked about sound wave propagation, its reflection, and then its diffraction. And we will actually talk here about one important application of engineering object called as sound barriers. So some of you may be actually aware about a chamber called as anechoic chamber. Okay, so assume that these are basically four walls of anechoic chamber. Anechoic chamber is basically a specialized chamber in which if you create certain amount of sound, then sound waves will actually go and hit the walls, and then most part of their energy will be absorbed in the wall, and very little amount of energy will be reflected back. So basically, anechoic chamber, the walls of that anechoic chamber, they are designed in such a way that they absorb sound energy. So in that actually anechoic chamber, some experiment was done, very like in 1981. Okay, what these people, Kawai has done is he has taken here a solid object that is basically your barrier, and in this object, on left hand side location here, he has kept here some sound source, and then he has actually sound source means something like a speaker, and then he has operated that speaker at certain frequency, let's say 500 hertz. What he has done is that at different points in the domain, at different heights in the domain along the x direction, he has noted down the sound pressure levels. Okay, and then he has plotted those sound pressure levels. We have actually performed the same calculations, and we have compared his experimental and our numerical results. So you can see here that for a constant y, that is horizontal line, for a constant y along the x direction, okay, along the x direction, what is my sound pressure levels. So those things are basically shown here. And then this information has been compared at different heights. Y is equal to 1.2 meter, zero point 0.8 meter, minus 0.6 meter. So basically origin has been kept at this left corner, left top corner of the barrier. And then anything below this particular origin will be y is equal to some negative coordinate. And then as you can see that since actually we have analyzed our methods before using them for these acoustic calculations, we are able to get reasonably well sound pressure distribution inside the domain. Okay, so if you look at here, we have compared this analytical solution with our computed solution. Even here also, someone else numerical solution we have compared with our solution. So basically, this is the third part in which someone's experimental result we are comparing with our computed solution. So that actually shows you that the present methods, high accuracy methods, they are able to capture the sound field correctly. Now, these sound barriers are very important, important engineering objects. Not mechanically, many mechanical engineers are associated with this problem, like acoustic barriers problem. Mainly civil engineers are the one who are interested in solving that kind of problem. So what they do is generally that I will describe you the problem first. So we have generally a property, residential property, very situated close to a road. Um, People love to have such kind of property because it gives them access to all the important locations quickly. But then there are those vehicles, and we are continuously subjected to some kind of a noise. So in order to actually reduce that kind of vehicle noise, generally a solid object is kept in between the vehicle and the residential area, and that is called as acoustic barrier. So what happens is that when the vehicle creates certain amount of noise, the sound waves are not directly able to come to your residential area. Rather, basically, the most part of the sound waves it gets reflected back, or the acoustic barrier is designed in such a way that it absorbs most part of the incident sound energy, and then there is some small part of sound energy that is basically comes to this residential area through sound waves diffraction. The sound waves basically bend. uh, So actually, in our Hindi movies, we always hear this kind of dialogue: "दीवारों के कान होते हैं." So when someone says that "दीवारों के कान होते हैं," what he wish to say is that part of the incident acoustic energy gets transmitted through this barrier, while other part basically gets diffracted and comes inside. So even if there is a wall in between a speaker and other part, still actually sound transmission is possible. And here actually you can see one of such sound barriers. So there is actually a wall, not actually cement concrete kind of wall, but specifically designed wall, which basically stops this noise going to the residential area on the right hand side of this road. Okay. So these basically barriers, they can be of different shapes, they can be of different sizes. There can be bio barriers like trees, bushes can be there. So many different things are there. And like noise, sound noise is really a problem actually. So you can actually see here a picture of Paris, and then there are different roads, and you can see that on the roads, the sound intensity like 70 to 75 decibels is recorded. So people who stay in the center of the city, very close to the roads, the property rates are high, but then the kind of life which they should have, it gets really affected. The kind of psychological impact that we have being subjected to continuous noise, we do not appreciate it much quickly, but still it has. There are lots of studies. They have shown that like there are some uh, like our body actually suffers a lot both physically and psychologically when we are continuously subjected to such kind of disturbances. So one has to worry about how to construct these barriers effectively, and maybe our these methods they can be used to study how sound waves propagate and where exactly I have more amount of sound, how to reduce that sound. So we can really find out where exactly the sound energy is concentrated. At that point, we can put some kind of a absorbers or barriers so that the sound energy gets basically absorbed in that location. These are some of the cities. I guess some of the participants are from these cities. You can actually see that average noise range in those destinations, different cities, it is somewhere around 50 to 65. In some cases, it is very high, right? Mumbai and Bengaluru, Marthalli, Chennai, Gindi, Delhi, Dilshad Garden. These numbers are simply unacceptable. This is maximum noise level. So even actually, whenever we burst a firecracker, we do not probably hear that kind of big noise. Some big firecrackers can actually create that kind of big noise, but if you remain actually exposed to this kind of high noise, that's it actually, like one suffers a lot, and people do not appreciate, but then one has to worry about the noise pollution, the sound noise pollution. So these are the data they are actually obtained from Central Pollution Control Board. Okay, from their one of their picture, actually I have taken this data. So now actually we want to discuss about how to study sound propagation and how to control it effectively using barriers. So this is a problem actually one can think about. So here actually you can see here that this is a red dot. This is some kind of a acoustic source. And then here you can see here the black line. So this black line is more or less like a barrier. And then I have here a reflecting ground. Okay, so this bottom y is equal to 0 is basically your reflecting ground. Now, this particular acoustic source is located at a location x0 and y0. And then the sound waves are basically created with frequency omega. So S is basically your source frequency, sound source. S is basically your sound source that appears in your disturbance density and disturbance pressure equations. These are again coupled partial differential equations taken derived from Navier-Stokes equations, okay, by linearizing those equations. And they basically tell you that how your disturbance velocity, particle velocity, disturbance density, and disturbance pressure, they actually change in time and space. That is basically they dictate. Now I'm going to start this animation, okay? So you will see that, just a minute. Yeah, you will see that uh, positive and negative oscillations are created. So compression and reflection is created here. So these sound waves basically reflect back from the barrier surface, also from the ground. You can see that part of the sound is basically diffracted through the around the edge, and then some sound waves basically spill over in this region, right hand side region. So basically, you can see that how much sound has been reduced in this shadow region as compared to the region which is exposed to the sound source. So lots of interesting phenomena they have happened here. One is like reflection, superposition of sound waves. You can see here complex patterns because of superposition. Another important thing is about diffraction. The sound waves are able to diffract around the object. So, like using your accurate methods, you can find out how your sound field will be in the absence and in the presence of barrier. So, if I insert a particular body, then how much actually noise reduction should I expect? That actually one can find it out. Okay, so that is basically precisely done in this exercise. So here you have this object, okay, and this is the case without barrier, and this is the case with barrier. Now, when you put barrier here, you can see that here we have only green and yellow color, which corresponds to like very small noise levels, right? But here actually you have that red color, okay? Uh, Red color, so the blue color is still not shown. Okay, so this is at one particular time I have taken this actually thing, but you will be able to see that because of insertion of these barriers, the sound waves are basically, the sound field is basically it's changed. Now, if I actually take the pressure variation at each and every point with respect to time, And if I find out the root mean square value of that pressure variation at each and every point, then I will be able to get information about sound field there. And that is basically done here. So I have skipped that slide. So in the absence of barrier, basically your sound field looks symmetric on the left hand side and on the right hand side. So the maximum value is something like 0.03, and basically you have certain sound levels on the right hand side. But when you come actually to when you insert a barrier, basically all you find is that all the sound energy, because of presence of this barrier, gets concentrated only along, let's say, around 45 degree. So this happens because of presence of barrier, while you have completely here black color, which corresponds to a shadow region. So one can use these accurate methods to design, let's say, auditoriums, classrooms. One can actually use these methods to design barriers for reducing noise at schools, hospitals, public transport places. The concept of barrier is probably new to us. Not many Indian cities or not many places actually they work on this idea, but it is very much there in most of the advanced countries where they give proper attention to reducing noise in the residential area. Okay, so this was one such example. If you actually take a directivity, okay, so what you can do is that, let's say, assume that your center is somewhere here, and then you go 360-degree in this direction. You will see that you have a lot of sound here, but for these angles, the sound values will be smaller. So that exercise has been done here. So I have shown here directivity variation. So the red line is basically with barrier. And you will see that only the left corner or left half portion of the domain, we have some sound. But due to presence of barrier on the right hand side part of the domain, we do not have that large sound. When it comes to a case without barrier, the sound field looks symmetric on both the sides. So this is interesting application of those high accurate methods. Now, actually, you may have seen such kind of buildings. So the architects and civil engineers, they are very wise people. When they design such buildings, they put such kind of balconies where actually they can put some kind of a sound absorbing material on the top side or on the bottom side. What these buildings they do is that whenever some sound waves actually approach these balconies or some extension, part of the incident sound energy they actually reflect back. As a result, people who are staying inside this building, they are not exposed to sound waves. Okay, so that is basically shown in this basically animation. So you have sound wave here, and you have such kind of slots like balconies. You will see that some sound waves are trapped here. Those waves are trapped, and then they are basically reflected in the left hand side direction. As a result, what happens is that the waves which other would have basically diffracted and gone on this side, they have been prevented in basically getting diffracted and going to this particular region. So most major part is basically their diffraction has been prevented. And people actually see that there are lots of advantages whenever we have such kind of grooved or slotted kind of design. People are interested in designing such kind of buildings. Okay, so if we actually compare about same acoustic source but then different geometries of those barriers, okay, so you will see that actually this is the grooved geometry just now we have talked about. This is a eye-shaped kind of barrier. We have actually seen its animation, and then actually we have here the left hat kind of structure and right hat kind of structure. You will see that the blue color basically corresponds to the smallest sound energy. So when it comes to the grooved barriers, we get a lot of basically advantage, right? So actually one can use these techniques like accurate methods to analyze sound field uh, in the closed as well as in the open domains. Okay, so these were the applications. Now actually we will come to a slide. This slide doesn't belong to our work, but this slide actually I have just put here to bring some curiosity into you. This slide actually talks about an acoustic diode. Now, all of us know that we are aware about a concept called as diode in electrical engineering. So basically, a diode is a thing which allows current to go in only one direction, and current in other direction is not allowed, basically. So actually, people in this particular paper, these researchers, they were interested in creating a acoustic diode. Like the sound waves will be allowed to move only in one direction, not in the other direction. So what they did is that they have actually made a slotted device, something like this. They have put here a microphone, which will record sound waves. They have put here speaker, which basically sends sound waves in this direction. And then the material of these surfaces and the shape of these surfaces is created in such a way that basically if you send sound waves from one side, those sound waves are able to go on the other side. While if you again send the sound waves from this direction, you will see here that uh, on the other side, not many waves are observed. So basically, this is a device in which sound waves are able to go only in one direction, not in other direction. So this is very interesting application. Like you can think about constructing windows in your home. Like the outside noise will not come inside your home, but inside noise can go outside. Or if you want to have vice versa, that is also possible. So this is basically authors have designed experimentally and numerically they have also demonstrated this acoustic tunnel, which allows acoustic waves to pass only in one direction. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So now actually I will come to so far the calculations that we have seen. In all those calculations, there was no fluid flow as such, right? And we were basically looking at how sound waves propagate in a domain in the absence of flow. Most of the examples, sound waves in all the previous examples, they were created just because of speakers, while there were no hydrodynamic disturbances as such, which were creating those sound waves. Okay. So now actually here we will talk about next few slides. We will talk about sound that is created by fluid flow, and we will talk here about a DNS approach, direct numerical simulation approach, in which actually we solve computational aeroacoustic problems. We resolve the flow and sound field details directly by solving Navier-Stokes equations. The equations, they have been solved using highly accurate physical dispersion relation preserving methods. And those methods, basically, we also use large number of grid points. As a result, what happens is that we are able to extract the sound field details from the computed solutions of Navier-Stokes equations. Now, this is particular work, like from this afternoon lunch onwards, the kind of work that I have shown you, this is the work that we have been involved here after I became a faculty. After a couple of years, I became a faculty, and then we actually looked at like how to find out the sound field details. And we came across this one interesting paper from Journal of Fluid Mechanics. It is written by a group of researchers from Institute of Fluid Sciences, Tohoku University, Sendai, Japan. Very interesting article and written also in a very nice fashion. So Professor Ino and his group, like Hatakeyama, they have actually worked on simulation of aeroacoustic calculations using this DNS approach. In this particular paper, what they have done is that they have obtained sound generated by two-dimensional flow past a circular cylinder. So it's a laminar flow, but then as there is a flow around circular cylinder, there is a vortex shading that takes place, and then they have seen that that vortex shading is responsible for sound creation, right? So whenever we clap, what happens is that we actually force sound like air in between our palms to quickly eject out, right? And then there is a creation of some kind of a void between our palms. That basically creates some kind of a sound pulse or acoustic pulse. So whenever there is a alternate vortex shading that happens behind a cylinder, there is a noise creation, sound creation. And then that sound generated by vortex shading has been computed here in this paper. So we have actually followed that paper, and I am discussing corresponding strategy here if some of you are interested in such kind of calculations. Okay. So basically in this paper, at low Mach numbers, flow field has been investigated, sound field has been investigated by solving two-dimensional unsteady compressible Navier-Stokes equations. And then you will see that they have given here some details. So these equations were solved by finite difference method, special derivatives. They were obtained using a sixth order accurate compact scheme. We have not talked about compact scheme yet, but in the like some examples actually, I will actually discuss about sixth order compact Paide scheme, and then fourth order Runge-Kutta scheme for time integration. Okay, and they have given some time parameter, time step parameter, grid size, and then they have given grid size spacing in different domains actually that has been shown here. So behind cylinder, you see such kind of vortex shading, and this vortex shading is responsible for fluctuating loads acting on the cylinder. And this vortex shading is also responsible for sound creation. So if you find out the average pressure variation over the cylinder, that average pressure variation over cylinder comes like this. And if you actually compare the drag lift coefficient variation at different Reynolds numbers, so that information is not shown here, what these different lines mean, but then you get some kind of a periodic nature associated with your fluctuating loads, lift and drag coefficient. One thing you have to see that the amplitude of lift fluctuation for these blob body flows is somewhere around plus 0.5 and minus 0.5. While corresponding mean value of drag coefficient, although it is large, the fluctuations associated with drag coefficient, they are not much. So fluctuations in lift coefficient, they are large. Fluctuations in drag coefficient, they are small. So this point we will note. And what they have done is that they have actually find out the instantaneous pressure field. So the instantaneous pressure field or the total pressure field is something like shown here. They have actually computed such kind of instantaneous pressure field for large time, and then they have averaged it out. So when they average it out, then actually the average pressure field looks like this, the right hand side column. So this is the averaged pressure field, and this is the basically instantaneous pressure field which is obtained from solutions of Navier-Stokes equation. If you subtract this mean pressure field from this instantaneous pressure field, then you end up in getting this kind of behavior, and that is basically your disturbance pressure field. So away from the body, you do not have those hydrodynamic disturbances, and then these disturbance pressure fields essentially signify the sound waves which are propagating in upward and downward direction. Okay, so basically this is how Inoue and Hatakeyama they calculated the sound field from the solution of Navier-Stokes equation. So what they have done is that they have computed the instantaneous flow field values, and then they have obtained the mean pressure field, subtracted the mean pressure field from instantaneous pressure field to get the disturbance pressure field. That disturbance pressure field essentially signifies your sound waves propagating perpendicular to, propagating away from your circular cylinder. So this particular plot, instantaneous disturbance pressure field plot, is from their paper, Inoue's paper, JFM paper, and then we have used their approach, and we have also computed our sound waves, and our computed flow field or sound waves, they look like this. Okay, so we have actually done extensive analysis or verification, and we have seen that when we use accurate methods, we are able to capture these details correctly. So this is basically an animation. You have cylinder somewhere here, okay, and then there is a flow happening from left to right, okay, and then you have eddies here which are basically getting shed. So when those eddies are shed, basically sound waves are generated, and then they basically propagate in the upward and downward direction because the lift coefficient fluctuations they are very large as compared to drag fluctuations. So you can see here that most of the sound waves are going upward and downward direction. This essentially happens because the amplitude of lift fluctuations is very large as compared to drag fluctuations. Okay, so this is just to give you idea about how sound field looks like. Uh, So now actually we will go to a next figure. Okay, so actually, as many of you might be aware about that, one of the interesting objective for engineers is that we want to reduce the fluctuating loads. We want to reduce the mean drag coefficient associated with the body. And one way is like you can do some kind of a flow control kind of exercise. So when you do flow control exercise, you essentially modifies the kind of vortices shed in your wake region. As a result, basically the kind of forces acting on your cylinder or on your body, they also get modified. So what we were actually trying to say here is that if you are able to modify the vortices shed in your wake region, these vortices are nothing but sources of sound. If you actually alter their strength, frequency, then the generated sound waves they will also get modified. So lots of people they have actually looked at this particular problem, flow past a rotary oscillating cylinder from the flow control perspective. Like they were interested in having least drag case. So they have done such kind of simulation. But what we were interested in is that we wish to find out how such kind of like variations or surface oscillations they actually result in change in radiated sound field. So here actually I'm showing you animation. You have a cylinder and you can see that this cylinder is basically oscillating. The way actually these shear layers close to cylinder surface they rotate, you can see that basically the kind of eddies which are shed behind the cylinder in the wake region, those eddies are something different as compared to the what we have seen in couple of slides before. So whenever your body undergoes some kind of a vibration or oscillation, rotary oscillation, then the vortices shed in the wake region they become different, and corresponding radiated sound field also gets modified. So you can actually capture all these things accurately only when the methods are accurate. Okay. So what we did is that we have compared our results with some of the results available in the experiment. So we have a paper in the Journal of Fluid Mechanics by a French group called as Tharia et al. Okay. They have performed experiments for this problem, and we have performed simulations for the same experimental parameters. So here you have normalized drag coefficient, and here you have forcing frequency of rotary oscillation. We have seen that the computed values of like normalized drag coefficient, they are something same as what they have found in experiment. So this is more or less like a qualitative match. If you look at the flow visualization pictures, which are basically given in the right hand side, okay. So basically, if you see here, these are the flow visualization pictures which were given by Tharia et al. In that paper. And what we have shown here that we also show here our vorticity contours. And you can actually mark that this particular vortex corresponds to this vortex. And then actually we have this vortex here. Then we have another vortex here. So you are able to actually correspond one-to-one flow feature. Important point is that these features not only match at one certain time, if you actually match multiple pictures over one cycle of oscillation or over a half cycle of oscillation, every picture, analogous picture, basically match. So this happens because whatever the eddy that we have resolved here, that eddy has propagated through a correct distance as observed in the physical pictures. So use of dispersion relation preserving schemes is must. Without that, there is no hope in computing things accurately. Okay. So we have shown here like calculation, like match, quantitative match as well as the qualitative match here. Okay. And now actually we have extracted the information about disturbance pressure, sound field for different forcing cases. So you can see here that this particular window corresponds to forcing frequency ratio 0.3. While now successive windows, actually I have increased my disturbance, I have increased my rotary oscillation frequency. Here I have FR equal to 0.6. Here I have FR equal to 1.0. And in this case, I have FR is equal to 2.0. So this FR means non-dimensional frequency ratio. So this FR is equal to 1 corresponds to Strohal frequency. So FR is basically ratio of forcing frequency to Strohal frequency. So when forcing frequency is small, corresponds to Strohal frequency, what you will see that sound waves are created like this positive, negative kind of thing you can see. But then corresponding frequency is small and wavelengths are large. Remember V is equal to n lambda. So whenever your frequency is small, lambda has to be bigger. Now, as I increase my forcing frequency, the sound waves are also corresponding sound waves frequency also increase. And then you will see that as I increase my frequency to 2, sound waves frequency also increase. As a result, the wavelength decreases. Okay, so I will actually show you this animation. You can see here that how waves propagate. Okay, so the point here was that you can control the flow, but by doing that flow control kind of option, are we able to control the like sound field? Is it possible? That is what actually we were interested in finding out. And yes, it is possible. So when the forcing frequency is small, the corresponding sound waves frequency is very small. When the forcing frequency is large, corresponding sound wave frequency is also large. So you can actually change the signal, sound signal that is heard by a particular observer or listener far away from the cylinder. Okay, so this is interesting. Next, actually, what we have shown is that one can even create some kind of a bits in sound waves. Okay, by appropriately choosing the rotary oscillation frequency of a cylinder. So basically, if the oscillation frequency of the cylinder falls in certain frequency region, then one observes the modulation phenomena. Okay, it is observed that the lift and drag coefficients, they also see such kind of modulation. And then if you find out the disturbance pressure field, okay, that disturbance pressure field, for some cases, it basically shows a kind of modulation. So remember morning class, I said that whenever we have two frequencies which are close by, then actually modulation happens. Here, basically, if your forcing frequency is 0.9, that means forcing frequency is 0.9 and shading frequency is 1. That time, basically, we are able to see such kind of modulation of sound waves. That is basically shown here. Okay, so interesting, you will hear some kind of beep, beep, beep kind of tones if you really stand into sound field of such kind of flow past a cylinder performing rotary oscillations. Okay, so these actually all these works basically we have published in last 2.5 years. There were 4 papers actually. They came in physics of fluids, and interesting part is that like the bottom paper here, this became a featured article, while this another paper became a editor's pick in physics of fluids. So in all these papers, basically we have talked about how sound field can be controlled or how sound field can be analyzed uh, uh, by undergoing through this DNS approach, direct numerical simulation approach. This is another renowned journal, Journal of Acoustical Society of America. We have actually shown that when the cylinder undergoes mean rotation in along with the rotary oscillation, the mean rotation basically puts some kind of a asymmetry between the vortices shed from on the top half portion and vortices shed in the bottom half portion in the wake region. That creates some kind of a asymmetry in the radiated sound field. So this particular approach has been basically used to understand modifications in the sound field, or when the surface undergoes certain kind of a rotary oscillation or some vibration motion. As well as this particular paper, this paper is also interesting. This got recently published in Physics of Fluids. It talks about mitigation of aerodynamic disturbances or aerodynamic sound for a laminar flow fast square cylinder using pair of cowl plates. We have shown that by adding splitter plates, a new geometry of splitter plates we have shown here. By doing that kind of analysis, the sound field can be reduced by almost like 20 decibels. That's actually huge, and so far nobody has shown that one can really attenuate sound by so and so much amount. Now, again, you have to be cautious here. If your numerical methods are themselves dissipative, if your numerical methods are stable, you do not need any splitter plate or cowl plate. The numerical method itself will damp your sound waves. That certainly we do not want to have. So use of accurate methods is very essential when it comes to accurate prediction or meaningful prediction. Okay. So now actually I will come towards final conclusion of all this marathon presentation. So one actually really needs these highly accurate schemes. One needs to understand them, their numerical properties. One needs to be careful while using these methods. And once you are sure about those methods, then only actually you can apply those methods for solving complex flow problems. Okay. So we have to pay attention. We cannot be blind towards the kind of methods that we use. That is basically message from this lecture series. And I will actually just at the last slide, I will like to say thanks. Okay, so these are research scholars in our scientific computing lab at IIT Bhubaneswar. So this particular laboratory we have set up here after I became faculty in IIT Bhubaneswar. And then these are three students who have finished PhD in last 6 years. So Jitenja actually worked on uh, sound barrier problem. Jitenja is now faculty in Bangalore. Bikash has just finished his thesis defense. Bikash is now probably going to Hong Kong for postdoctoral study. Naveen has submitted thesis uh, last March. Unfortunately, due to lockdown, his defense got delayed. So he's also about to now like go. So Bikash has actually worked on like um, deriving new schemes, accurate schemes, and then he applied those schemes to solve these problems. Okay, aeroacoustic problems. And Naveen has specifically worked on rotary oscillation, rotary motion kind of problems, and he has shown that how sound field can be like altered by those forced oscillations. So all these works were very interesting, at least to me, and I am very happy about those works. As you can see that those papers, they were accepted because lots of interesting facts were there. You can actually go through those papers if you are interested. And just actually, I would again actually I will probably end today's session. We have to take around 4 slides. Also, I need to describe you for 5 minutes or so related to hands-on experience. But in this particular presentation, I would like to end by saying a couple of things. Once I told my advisor that actually one needs to be lucky in order to get good teachers and good parents. But then looking at my students, I would also say that one needs to have like good luck in actually having good students. So these students, they worked very nicely. And all of the things that I have shown you uh, in the second part of the presentation, actually I have taken from their work. Okay. So here actually I will actually end my presentation. And now we have some time actually to discuss. Like if you have any doubts or so, feel free to ask now. Yeah.
You can raise the hands and then we can discuss. If someone has some queries, some questions, please.
Like I was part of one presentation in one of the international conference, and the speaker said that please ask questions, do not worry. Like someone has said that there are no stupid questions, there are only stupid answers. So please actually don't hesitate to ask questions. We
Hello,
are
sir.
in. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm listening to your presentation since morning, and many interesting facts were there. Like I
Okay.
wanted to ask, like most of the people, like even I use the software packages like Ansys Fluent and all,
Yes,
but
yes,
we don't know whether like unless we do some experimentation, we are not sure whether our results are correct or our modeling is correct or not.
yes.
So I was keen to develop our own solver. So can I know how to start, learning to develop your own solver?
Actually, that is a good approach. Actually, at least we will be able to, like, if we can actually do that kind of thing, it will be really interesting to do. So, what you can do is that I have listed actually that book, right, from Cambridge University Press, a book by Professor T.K. Gupta. So, in that book, he has given a nicely that lots of material is there that how one should analyze numerical methods. Also there are lots of his papers, you can actually see recent papers which tells you about analysis of numerical methods. That is just to understand like what goes into the methods. You can get the clear idea. If you are interested in developing a solver, then actually you will have to program those Navier-Stokes equations. You will have to write a parallel programming code, and then it takes time. Okay, but then instead of not starting at all, at least you should start. So people who are working in the area of academics, they generally have this luxury that they can spend time, sufficient amount of time on solver development, and then they have lots of students working with them, so they can take their help as well. So that thing is possible. But somehow if someone is in company and then they want to actually uh, uh, understand these numerical methods, they can keep on continuing use of software packages. But then those software packages, when we use, we have to really know actually before using any method how good or how bad that method is. Because relying completely on experiments is not good. We generally blindly follow experimental output. If some credible person has performed those experiments, then yes, we can follow those experimental values and then actually choose a particular grid or numerical method so that we can have a like matching between computational and experimental results. But even actually now, the point that I want to make is that whenever actually a option is given to us, what should be the grid spacing delta x, what should be my time step delta t, one has to know that what is the physical information that I'm looking at. If the frequency or if the wavelengths are too small or too large, corresponding change in grid spacing and time step should be actually done. Okay. So one needs to know that how the flow field looks like before even generating a grid and starting a solver. So you will have to write a solver. If you are in academics, you can spare that time. If you are in company, maybe actually before using any solver or any scheme, at least pay some attention to the kind of their properties. You can use this analysis. Need to learn this analysis. It is a full like semester course, but just I want to make you people aware about such kind of analysis. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, any other queries? Some questions from participants?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
So
Okay,
you
so
can show that that
yeah,
hands-on
yeah,
PPT first.
hands-on actually. Yeah, someone actually raised hand, I think.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah,
Go
Amit
ahead.
sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Actually, I have a doubt
Yeah,
regarding acoustic modeling.
yes,
So
yes.
I was modeling for airfoil motion, which is a stationary airfoil motion. I
Oh,
validated a paper using this method, Flox, Williams, and Hawkins model for
okay,
acoustic prediction. But now I was planning to uh, get aeroacoustic results for airfoil pitching. Airfoil which is having a pitching motion or oscillatory motion, but I am
okay.
not finding any suitable models. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing is that actually the kind of approach that I have shown you, that doesn't involve any kind of a modeling approach, something like
Okay.
when it comes to Lighthill's approach or let's say FWH kind of analysis, what essentially is done is that like based on the information available with sound sources, they try to predict some kind of a far field noise or even
Yes, sir.
like fluctuating forces if they are known on the body, then they can actually find out sound field in the sound radiated in the far field. So when it is direct simulation approach, it is very much direct, like the flow field has information about hydrodynamic and sound disturbances together. But then if you are doing FWH analysis, no matter actually even if you oscillate your body, still actually FWH analysis should be able to give you sound radiated because of this oscillatory kind of motion. Maybe actually I can actually give you a reference. If you can write down on a paper, there is a actually there is a paper by Professor Yuji Hattori. Okay,
Okay.
Yuji Hattori. So Professor Yuji Hattori sits in the same cabin in which Professor Inous actually spent his time. Uh, he's from the same Tohoku University group. And then Professor Yuji Hattori actually published this paper in JFM somewhere in 2017, 16 or 17, where he has actually talked about flow past two cylinders, one cylinder stationary and another cylinder oscillating. And there he showed that FWH analysis is useful in getting you sound field information. So maybe actually you can see that how it is applied in that paper. Okay, that is a JFM paper somewhere in 2016 and 17. Professor Yuji Hattori. You will be able to get that information.
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
thank you. Huh?
Yes, anyone else?
There is some AV, some hand is there. Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, sir. Actually, yeah. He's
Okay,
all
okay,
my
okay,
doubt.
okay. So
So you
yeah,
can show
so
that some hands-on the things
yes,
so that
I'm showing
yeah,
now hands-on things. So just a minute, maybe.
yeah. You can share your screen.
Yes. Yeah. So I hope this slide is visible to you. General stencil of compact scheme.
Yeah,
I hope,
visible.
yeah, visible, right? So
Visible.
basically, I'm going to send two programs to you. In one program, solution of one-dimensional wave equation has been derived using these accurate compact schemes, fixed order and fourth order accurate schemes. And in the second problem, basically the problem which we saw, the piston basically oscillates and it creates some kind of a sound waves. So that problem also, like there are coupled partial differential equations. So how to solve those coupled partial differential equations using these compact schemes, that has been shown. So compact schemes are generally used when we talk about the special derivative. And as I mentioned in the morning, these compact schemes are something like implicit schemes. You can see here that the ui prime basically is unknown. Alpha values are some kind of coefficients. They are given to us for certain schemes. While on the right hand side, this information is known to us. So value of variable at the I plus 1, I minus 1 point, I plus 2 and I minus 2 point, A and B coefficients, they are given for a particular scheme. So compact schemes are implicit schemes. You need to actually solve tridiagonal matrix algorithm in order to get the value of derivative at a particular point. Okay. And the C4 and C6, like fourth and sixth order compact scheme, corresponding coefficients they have been given here. So in the code, I think we have used C6 scheme, and you can actually refer to this slide. Okay. And the time integration has been done using this optimized 5-stage Runge-Kutta method. So like this is like second order accurate method, but it has 5 stages. What you will see that this Runge-Kutta scheme method allows you to take time step almost 4 to 5 times larger than the conventional Runge-Kutta fourth order scheme allows you. So these are basically 5 stages in that uh, scheme. So I will write down here, basically, let's assume that I'm solving equation dou u by dou t plus c dou u by dou x equal to 0. Okay. I can write down this equation as dou u by dou t is equal to minus c dou u by dou x. And this minus c dou u by dou x is something like f of u. Okay. That is what it has been referred to. So if you are starting from, let's say, nth time step, then the first stage value is directly obtained by value of variable at that location at the nth point at the nth time plus 0.1 into delta t into value of c dou u by dou x or minus c dou u by dou x at that grid point at time n. Okay. So basically you can actually complete these 5 stages. Basically you can complete these 5 stages, and once you complete these 5 stages, you can actually update your solution. Okay. So this basically method, time integration method, has been used in the code. How this method has been implemented, you can find it out. You can look at the code. It's very simple, not very big code, and you can see yourself. Okay. So basically this is your 5-stage Runge-Kutta method. And now actually I'm showing you output of first code. So in the solution of 1D wave equation code, we are solving this equation, and initial condition we need to give. So that initial condition we have given like this. In this initial condition, you will see that we have exponentially decay kind of function. So when this x will go away from 5, basically whatever this number will be very close to 0. If it goes away from 5, this number will be close to 0. That has been multiplied by some cosine signal. So as a result, we will get some kind of a packet. And then we have computed solution for c equal to 0.1, h equal to 0.01. And you can see here that t equal to 0, this is red is initial condition. When actually you go to t equal to 4t, that initial condition changes its shape, which is basically not allowed. So that happens because the chosen value of kh, non-dimensional wave number, is very high. So our scheme is not able to preserve the dispersion relation at this value of kh. However, if you basically put your kh associated with this packet initial condition very close to like 1.8 or so, you will see that the initial condition retains its shape as per the analytical solution. Okay, so please take a look at your one-dimensional wave equation code, which I am going to send to Dr. Sonawane, and you can relate this slide with the code. That will be a very simple thing to do. Okay, and finally, actually, this is basically the problem where you have a piston here, and then that piston gives some kind of a oscillations. And then we have these 3 coupled equations, U, V, and P equation. And what we have done is that in the code, we have taken a domain x equal to 0 to 400, and in y direction, basically minus 200 to 200 plus 200. And we have given that the boundary condition at x equal to 0, that is like when this r is above minus 10, above plus 10 and below minus 10, the value of u component here is 0. So this is basically a solid wall. Okay, this is basically a solid wall. While on the piston, we have piston surface, we have prescribed this oscillating kind of motion. Okay, so again, the derivatives are obtained using C6 scheme and RK5 time integration scheme. So these things are basically done. You can look at this problem, and when you actually get the solution at these different times, 30, 60, and 90, if you plot the contours, pressure contours, you will see that the oscillating motion of the piston sends these sound disturbances. So these are the things basically you will be able to see. Okay. So any doubt in these things? These are just supplementary slides to help you in understanding the equations that we are solving and the kind of things that we are going to measure.
The codes are in Fortran.
The codes are in Fortran.
Okay, and we can plot using TechPlot.
Yes, you can plot using TechPlot. Okay. So I will send those things shortly to you.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe actually, like I will still wait if some of you have any doubts. Let's say next couple of minutes, if you want to discuss, we are free to discuss. Otherwise, you can always write to me. And then I will try to answer your doubts. Okay. So I will still wait. Is there any doubt? Any one of you like want to ask something?
Yeah, please participant. If you have any doubt, please ask.
So I feel I feel that like this must be like very difficult task that very difficult task that listening to presentations one after another for such a long duration.
It's okay. Bhavna is asking something. Bhavna?
Yes, please go ahead.
Written using MPI or
Yeah,
no?
so the flow solvers, they are written using MPI. But then these like codes which I'm sharing with you, these are serial codes. These codes do not need, these codes do not need that kind of a large memory or grid point requirement. Okay, so these codes are essentially serial, not MPI. But one actually needs to use MPI whenever we have to go with flow solver. So
Yes, sir.
that is okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then,
Okay.
Then
So
should
I
we
think,
stop?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I do not know, like whether I cause misery or what. So let's see. Actually, I'm very eager to see the feedback. And in case of any doubt, we are always there. Please feel free to call us. Please feel free to write to us. Okay. Okay. Then, Dr. Chandrakant, should I?
Yes. Yeah, sure. So you can stop, sir, because
Yes.